NCC, the gatekeeper of Nigerian IP. And at the same time, after he is done with his own, we are going to have the second speaker who will be talking on adopting appropriate method of IP valuation. And thereafter, we'll be having question and answers, which will be anchored by, which will be anchored accordingly, and we conclude everything with vote of thanks. Without much ado, I want us to start off the program in earnest. And before I go on, I want to implore all of us that we are having on the chat there, a section that says that if you're having any question, we should please ask our question right from now. And as we are going on, we should continue to send in our questions. All of them will be answered as we are going on, or they will be answered at the end of every lecture. We value your time, we value your contributions. Please, thank you. I want to use this opportunity now to please call on our chairman, Estate Surveyor and Valuer Lekan Akinwumi, an unassuming person and a very active one with the dexterity to ensure that this faculty and this arm of our profession comes to stand and to stand on a sustainable ground. Our chairman, sir, please, the debate is off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I really appreciate everybody on this platform. You are welcome. This is a Business Asset and Intellectual Property Valuation Professional Group. And I really appreciate everybody since Tuesday that we start this summit. We have all been, doing one thing or the other. It gives me, I would like to follow all the existing protocol, and then also appreciate one of our past presidents that is in attendance. It gives me pleasure to welcome you to the second session of this media edition of our professional group. The theme of the summit for this year is, do you know you have IP, and have you valued it? It's a deliberate choice that is to arouse a kind of a question from the heart of people, and also to be able to appreciate the fact that there is something that is deposited in them. And this, we are trying to also sensitize them to really know that there is a wealth embedded in them that they are not supposed to neglect. So knowing your worth gives you an edge in negotiation of all sorts, especially when it comes to commercialization of your IP. It's better for you to know what you want, and at the same time, you have a very clear court of negotiating power. And this will enable us to also render a good service. Either you are a lawyer or you are a valuer or an accountant. That is why we are trying to come up in this way of advocacy, and also to sensitize people. Lately, the business assets now, in business assets, we are having about 90% of our business assets to be intangible assets. So this is a really call to more work and more research for us as a valuer to really work and put up our cap of strategic thinking and work around it for us to be able to give people adequate service whenever we are rendering it. At this, I believe that at the end of today, we are going to add more to our knowledge about IP, and at the same time makes our society be a better place. Because our dream is that Nigeria is going to be one of the IP hubs at the end of the day. Because every nation is developing, and we don't have any excuse not to develop in regard. I will not waste your time as we are going to kickstart this with our moderator uh, guiding us, and then I think I will talk about the lead speaker. Please, Mr. Umar, have you given him the panel link? Hello, Technica.
I'm with you, sir.
Have you given Mr. Mike Akpan the panel link?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I can only see him on the attendees. Please,
He's coming in.
do that. He's coming in. Okay, thank you. Mr. Akpan, the barrister and the director of Institute in the Nigerian Copyright Commission, is somebody that is versed in IP with a lot of experience. And the Nigerian Copyright Commission is the gatekeeper of our IP in Nigeria. When you want to register anything copyright, that is just like the way we used to do search in lands on a CFO. They too, they have their record, they have their registry concerning copyright in Nigeria. And I know that after today, we are going to know more about the Nigeria Copyright Commission, what they are doing and what they are. They are the engine room of IP in Nigeria, because copyright is general. There's no other intangible asset that exists that doesn't have element of copyright in it. So Mr. Michael Akpan will do justice to that, and I would like to welcome him on board, so that because he has a lot of work on his hand, I just have to tell him if this is not fixed, I'm sure he will have declined that is not coming in. But thank you very much, Mr. Akpan. You have the floor now.
Yeah, thank you, Lekon. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Akpan, you can start your paper now, because I know you will soon want to leave. And after his paper, then we are going to take the question and answer immediately, so that we can release him. Thank you very much.
Please let the host enable my sharing of screen so I can share my slides.
Okay.
Yeah. While he's doing that, I thank you very sincerely for bringing me into this program. And I recall that the president of the Niesv and a team from the Business Assets and Intellectual Property Division of that professional body paid a courtesy visit to the Nigerian Copyright Commission not too long ago. And we've agreed on a number of collaborative initiative, one of which is why I am here to speak on copyright. And I'm happy that intellectual property is gaining ground within the ranks of estate surveyors and valuers, because at the end of the day, it's part of the tangible assets of businesses, which is very critical, but sometimes often ignored. I'm going to be speaking about copyright, and especially zeroing in on the Nigerian Copyright Commission as the gatekeeper of Nigerian intellectual property. Let me start by saying, well, my paper will basically be talking about basic concepts of copyright, rationale for protection, and historical development in Nigeria. I'll touch on the statutory framework of protection, both within Nigeria and outside Nigeria, international. I will also touch on some important aspects of the law, but more importantly, I'll be speaking on the administrative structure available for managing copyright, regulatory interventions of the NCC, some of the challenges in the copyright protection and administration field, and then we look at the prospects for the future. But before I get into this, let me say that as some of you may know, copyright is just one subset of intellectual property system. The other subsets are what we call industrial property, which deals with patents for inventions, trademarks, which is more common to most people, which is the branding element of businesses, industrial design that deals with the aesthetic and outward look of products, and a lot of other emerging areas of intellectual property like competition, geographical indications, and plant and animal breeders' rights. So these are other forms of intellectual property. But when we talk about copyright, it basically is a law that promotes creativity, is a system that grants rights to those who create intellectual property in the area of the arts and science. It does this by providing exclusive economic rights to owners of the works. Take, for instance, people who create music, people who paint visual art, sculpture, people who produce films, actors, people who mime, and so on and so forth. Even to some extent, architects have copyright in the architectural works as well as models that they create. So there are a number of things that fall within the purview of copyright. Now, by granting certain exclusive rights that enables the creators of this work to control what anybody does with relation to that work, they are now able to license the use of that work, and by that make some economic returns and remuneration in order to more or less incentivize them to be able to create more works for the benefit of members of the public. So in a nutshell, this is the basic thrust of the copyright system anywhere in the world. In terms of historical development of copyright law, our first copyright law could be traceable to the English law, which applied to Nigeria because we were a colony of England. And subsequently, after we gained independence, we promulgated Copyright Decree of 1970. That law continued to exist up until 1988. While it existed, there were changes in technology. You recall that around the late 60s and 70s, we started seeing cassette recorders and other modes of exploitation of copyright works, which were not which more or less made easy piracy. So people complain about the inadequacy of the 1970 law, and eventually it was jettisoned, and the 1988 Act, which till today has transmitted to Copyright Act Cap C 28 Laws of Federation 2004, is in place. So the current framework, like I said, of protection of copyright is the Copyright Act Cap C 28 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria. We have other subsidiary legislation in the form of regulations, which includes Copyright Security Devices Regulation, Copyright Video Rental Regulation. This one was in the work of prevalence of video rentals, which operated in a manner that violated rights of creators. Of course, we have the Copyright Optical Disc Plans Regulations, the Copyright Collective Management Organizations Regulations, and recently we had the Copyright Levy on Materials Order. Let me quickly say that some of these regulations have become moribund because we've moved ahead in the environment and they're no longer relevant. One of which is the Copyright Video Rental Regulation. It came up because of prevalence of video rentals, and we needed to control what they did so that they operate in manners that do not violate the rights. When we talk about the Copyright Security Devices Regulation, it enabled the Copyright Commission to prescribe the use of hologram stamps on works that were issued for commercial distribution. Take, for instance, cassettes and so on and so forth. Films, you have to put hologram on your films, on your audio cassettes before you send them to the market in order to distinguish them from pirated copies. but somehow we've stopped implementing that because now, as you will agree with us, much of music is consumed on a digital format and platform. So there is no room for actually use of hologram except in some other works that are still predominantly tangibly available. Now, in the international plane, I would say that Nigeria has ratified all the principal copyright treaties and conventions. When you get the slides, you read about the treaties, but the major treaty in copyright is what we call the Berne Convention for Protection of Literary and Artistic Works, which was adopted in 1886 and has undergone a number of reviews. I will also draw your attention that very recently in 2017, Nigeria ratified 4 very important copyright treaties. These were the WIPO Performance and Phonogram Treaty, the WIPO Copyright Treaty, the Beijing Treaty for Audiovisual Performance, and the Marrakesh Treaty to facilitate access to published works for persons who are blind or visually impaired. All these 4 treaties are very critical going forward in the protection of copyright. Take, for instance, the first 2, the Copyright Treaty and the Phonograms and Performance Treaty, are what are collectively referred to as the Internet Treaties, because they make the application of the copyright system available on the digital environment, which was not so. So it's now possible to enforce rights on the digital environment, provided your law approximates to the standard that is prescribed under these treaties. This is just a tabulation of when we joined each of these treaties. Now, when you talk about subject matters of copyright protection, the very basic subject matters are the literary works, which is books and other written materials, musical works, artistic works, cinematograph films, broadcast, sound recordings, and so on and so forth. We also have what we call neighboring rights. Neighboring rights are not exactly copyright, but these are rights that are granted to those who use copyright works, bring them to the public in a particular way. Take, for instance, those who perform compositions of songs, like performers, those who act movie scripts. They are not creating copyright work per se, but they help to bring them alive and for those copyright works to be expressed. So they are now given protection, which are suitably referred to as neighboring rights or related rights. Under this provision also in our law, we protect what we call folklore, that is indigenous craft arts, our folk music, our folk songs, our folk arts, our folk crafts, and so many elements of our folklore, our traditional system is protected under the copyright law, and many people don't know about this. Now, one of the important provisions in the copyright law that enables the Nigerian Copyright Commission function very maximally is the enforcement provision. Let me say this, at the establishment of the Nigerian Copyright Commission in 1988, it was not known to see countries having a dedicated agency that deals with copyright. Copyright was basically seen as a private proprietary interest that individuals can enforce directly. But Nigerian government looked at it and saw that our artists were helpless in the face of wide exploitation of their works and needed an agency to coordinate the enforcement and protection of rights. So NCC was established. And in 1992 and 1999, when the laws were amended, NCC was conferred with powers of enforcement, which include powers to appoint inspectors who have similar powers to police in respect of copyright offenses. It also has powers to issue regulations. I've spoken about some of the regulations issued. It has powers to inspect records of producers and powers to regulate businesses relating to production, distribution of copyright works. These are not all the powers. There are a number of other powers. And importantly, the power to approve and regulate what we call collective management organizations, which I'll be speaking about later on in this presentation. In terms of administering rights under the copyright law and system in Nigeria, the Nigerian Copyright Commission stands as the apex body in the public sector, and its mandate includes enforcement of criminal violations of copyright, regulation of businesses involving production and distribution of copyright works, public awareness, and generally advising government. There are other public agencies with parallel mandates over copyright-related issues, probably not over enforcement of piracy per se, but their mandates touches creative industry in some ways, and shortly I'll be talking about that. But more importantly, management of rights in terms of commercialization of your work as a copyright owner is something that is the purview of individual owners of rights, which they can do through agents or directly by themselves, or they can use approved collective management organization platforms to manage their rights. We'll talk about some of this going forward. The other relevant agencies in the creative sector are like National Broadcasting Commission. If you look at the National Broadcasting Commission code, you see the issue of piracy playing a very important role. Broadcast piracy is an infraction under the code and could be sanctioned as a Category C sanction, maybe not leading to suspension of license, but could lead to fines and other administrative sanctions. The National Film and Video Censors Board is another very important agency of government in the public space. They deal with film exclusively, but they also, to a large extent, ensure that pirated films are not allowed to be censored or exhibited in public places. Film Corporation of Nigeria is a producer or coordinator of development in the cinematograph industry. National Library also plays a role in that you obtain ISBN as part of documentation for books and serial. Of course, Advertisers Practitioners Council of Nigeria regulates the sector of advertising. And if you must know, a lot of creative contents go into advertising. So they create these enabling environments where advertising could be conducted in a very ethical manner, which will be devoid of copyright infringement. In terms of rights management initiative, the Nigerian Copyright Commission has come up with a number of initiatives, one of which is the Copyright Electronic Registration Platform. I heard Lekon referring to registering copyright and so on. But let me pause to say here, a number of people make mistake of thinking that copyright operates like the other intellectual property, which must be acquired upon registration. Contrary to that view, copyright law protects any creative work at the point of creation without formality. But when you have to document the existence of your work, that is when you come to an agency like Nigerian Copyright Commission to register that work. But that registration is not what gives you the rights to the work, but it only creates an evidence of the existence of that work in a public space that people could take notice of. Just like you see the symbol C on a page of a book, warning people that copyright in that book belongs to a particular person. If you need to know who owns copyright in a work, you come to the database of Nigerian Copyright Commission and search, and you may easily know who owns a work of copyright. So there are other schemes that helps people who own copyright to protect their works. One of them is for regulation of optical disc production and importation. What do we mean by that? Optical discs are basically CDs, DVDs. So we regulate the manufacturers of these products, and when they're imported, we also take a look at the importation that's subject to approval. We also regulate collective management system. When we talk about collective management system, a lot of people may not know why we have collective management system. I'll speak about that down the line. Another area is copyright levy of materials. There's a regulation, but this has not yet been implemented. As I mentioned, we established the Nigerian Copyright e-registration system because of the need to expand database of authors in Nigeria and to provide a flexible platform for submission of applications by authors who want to create evidence of existence of their work. Now, the services provided under this scheme include online registration of copyright works, searches of our database, processing of application for certification of documents. If you drop your document of registration and you have a conflict in court and you want to obtain certified true copy or to prove the date of existence of your work, you come to the commission and it will be certified and you tender it in court. Let me say here that in very recent times, a number of court decisions have turned on the prospect of registration of copyright. Although some of the court decisions may not really reflect the status of the law, but it is beginning to show that the importance of creating a database of this nature is very critical to sustenance of rights and protection of authors. The advantages of this scheme includes that the record we generate is an independent source of verifying data relating to a work. We issue certificates to applicants and it forms a prima facie evidence of your rights. And the scheme provides a depository of preserving original copies of works registered. So it also offers a global platform. You don't need to come to my office to register a work. You sit right in your bedroom and register the work and download your certificate and make online payments. It's very convenient. So you can access the portal through this link. I've displayed the link there. When you have the slide, you can test run the link. Now, in terms of regulation of optical disc manufacture, in the turn of 20,000, from 2000 and upwards, we started witnessing influx of foreign manufacturers and replicators of CDs in Nigeria. And some of these plants were illegal plants that were involved in high volume piracy. If you know how CDs are replicated, more than 1 million CDs could be replicated within an
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Hello, sir. Is that fine?
He has gone offline, sir.
Wow. Noble colleagues, please want you to please bear with us. This is part of our national issue. He will join us very shortly. He's battling with network at his end. Please bear with us, sir. Thank you all. Noble colleagues, we have reached on to the presenter, and we realize that he's currently battling with the network at his end. So at this material time, with what he has said so far, and in line with the lectures delivered by the barrister on Tuesday and Mr. Tunji Aino, please, I want us all to be coming up with our questions. I can see we are having one question on the platform already, and I want us to come up with more so that by the time we are done, we'll be able to showcase that truly we have learned from what we are doing here. Coming on board, we all agree that this is a new area in our profession which we are venturing into, and it's an area which is knowledge driven, just like others are. So we want all of us to come up with our questions so that as we are going on, if you have any now, we can ask, and then we'll try to attend to them one by one, pending the time our presenter will be able to come back and join us accordingly. As at now, as I said, we have just one question, and that I think that the question has been attended to by one of our facilitators today, that is Mr. Shaolu. The question is, will the CPD showcase a practical or worked example of IP evaluation that will be in the seminar materials? And the response was, that may be a bit little premature now, but subsequently we'll get to that stage. just in addition to that submission, as we are going on, and as we are interacting with other relevant professionals in IP valuation and administration sector, more activity will be generated, and all this will be the basis for our subsequent distribution and digestion. The ones which had been earlier circulated on our platform by chairman, we should all look into it. The ones we've checked earlier, we should look into it. Okay, I think Mr. Akpan is coming back alive. Once he's stable with his internet, as I said, we will continue. So, Mr. Akpan, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Okay, you are welcome back on board.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you, sir. Yes, we are hearing you, and we are hearing you left and direct.
Okay, I'll need a quick assistance in terms of being able to share my screen.
Okay, the engineers, please kindly assist him to share the screen.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, share my screen for me because I'm joining from, okay, hold on. Let me see if I'm joining from two devices. Let me see which one works fast. Okay, I think I can share the screen.
Okay, from your laptop?
Yes, from the laptop.
Beautiful, beautiful. Please, you are welcome, sir.
Okay. Please enable the share screen. I don't know what's happening. It's my audio. Are you hearing me?
We are hearing you loud and clear, sir.
Okay, perhaps you.
But you need to enable your video, sir.
May help me share the screen. Oh, hold on. Okay.
Beautiful.
Is my screen? Is my screen seen?
Yes, we are seeing the screen,
seeing
sir.
your screen. Yeah.
Okay, let me quickly run through so that I can finish up in time. And I'm sorry for that disruption. That's technology for us.
No problem, sir. We will soon be there.
I'll move quickly to discussing collective management of rights. When we talk about collective management of copyright, we're referring to the rights that are pulled together and managed collectively by way of granting what we call blanket license to users. I give you an instance. We all listen to music on the radio sets. We watch movies, sometimes streams on platforms. Now, music is one of the commonest products we listen to. On the radio, we go to clubs, music is played. We go to public places, banking halls, we enter maybe flights and we listen to music. Have you asked yourself, how do the creators of this music get compensated when this music is being played? Can they go around every radio station in Nigeria, television house, to license them individually? The simple answer is no. So they assign this right to monitor certain uses in public space to an organization which they belong to, and that organization now manages that right, gives licenses to these people, and collects royalties that are due from the performance of their music in a public place, and ultimately distribute the royalties to the owners of the music that have been played. A typical example of how collective management works for creators is, for instance, you will hear that the estate of Fela is still making money till today, even though Fela is not releasing music. What that simply means is that wherever Fela's music is played globally, money is being earned, and Fela's children and heirs are reaping from that money through the collective management organization that manages Fela's rights in public performance. So one of the functions of the Copyright Commission is to regulate the activities of this body, first by approving them and then maintaining oversight over their operations and settling disputes that may arise in the licensing process between them and the users. And sometimes it may become necessary to sanction them if they fall out of line. The powers to regulate collective management organization is under Section 39, sub 1 of the Copyright are obliged to give information to those who seek information for purposes of obtaining license and make available their repertoire for licensing on non-discriminatory basis. Now, it is important to regulate collective management organization because they mostly operate either as statutory or de facto monopoly. So, because they warehouse rights of people, it is important that they are regulated to avoid abuse of their rights or their dominant position, especially against the interests of users of works in the public space. So, and sometimes because of the weak enforcement of corporate governance internally, regulation of collective management by a government agency becomes important because you need to be sure that there is a level playing field for members and there is good corporate governance practice in place. Now, I want to talk about what we call the copyright levy scheme. When you look at copyright, it's supposed to incentivize people when people reproduce or use their works. But there is a number of reproduction that goes on in private spaces that you cannot license, but nevertheless impacts negatively on the rights of owners of copyright works. So to that extent, the law allows the Copyright Commission to impose levy on certain devices. Take, for instance, our smartphones that have ability to stream music, to share files to thousands of people, or even post on the internet. So we levy those products like photocopying machines and all those products that can impact negatively on the rights of authors. But the levy is minimal. It's not above 3% of the works that are levied or the devices that are levied. And importantly, it's not paid directly by those who use those devices, but paid by those who manufacture or import those devices at either the point of manufacture or the point of import. So, and this money will now be distributed to right owners through their collective management system, subject to certain deductions which government must make, including 20% deduction for anti-piracy purposes of the Commission. But this scheme is not yet implemented in Nigeria, even though it's implemented in our neighboring countries like Ghana, Burkina Faso, and Ivory Coast. Nigeria is in the process of activating this scheme, even though the regulation was there since 2012. The Copyright Commission works in partnership with a number of agencies. A critical partner is Police and Customs, EFCC, NBC, Film and Video Censors Board, and copyright associations or association of copyright owners like musicians, publishers, movie producers, record industries, and so on and so forth. In the international scene, we have a number of strategic partners like the World Intellectual Property Organization, US Patent Office, US Copyright Office, French Development Agency, United Kingdom Intellectual Property, and so on and so forth, including World Customs Organization and International Federation of Phonographic Industries. Now, the copyright system is not without challenges. One of the challenges of the copyright system is technological development. Now, before now, it was possible for you, if you produce a work, you can decide where to sell your work or where to, how to keep it. But now with digital technology, once a work is out there, people can share it on the internet, mobile devices, and so on. So it becomes very difficult for authors to police this work. Of course, there's the issue of insufficient awareness among owners, users of work, and it makes even enforcement difficult. There are economic factors. Because of poverty, people tend to patronize a lot of cheap pirated products and fueling the markets for illegal trade with piracy. Weak management structure is also a very serious challenge in the copyright system. There are very few experts to manage rights or advise owners of works. And of course, funding of regulatory and enforcement activities is also key. Sometimes we have to contend with the porous border, just like other counterfeit and contraband goods are getting into the shores of Nigeria through our vast borders. Copyright works are not an exception, so it's a challenge. Of course, I've talked about dearth of professionals to help with management, and then the challenge in the justice delivery system. When you take people to court on matters pertaining to copyright, it sometimes takes a long time, and even judges sometimes find it difficult to grapple with this issue. This is why we are now promoting alternative dispute resolution, which is one area we discussed with the institution of estate surveyors when they came. Over time, the federal government has made certain key strategic interventions to help this copyright system grow. The most remarkable of them was the 3 billion grant to develop the film industry in 2014, which was known as Project Apple. In terms of our own NCC response to these challenges, in 2012, we launched a copyright reform agenda, which culminated in producing a draft copyright bill. I'm happy to say that that bill has gotten to National Assembly after about 6 years, and we are now waiting for the enactment of that bill into law. Significantly, that bill is supposed to defrog our copyright system from the analog to the digital space and also tighten the enforcement prospects under the law and makes a lot of facilitation for right owners to be able to administer their rights even on the digital environment. In terms of prospects for the future development of our copyright system, I can say that the enhanced capacity arising from the strategic interventions will boost higher quality of products, and our products can well rank in the international market. You can even see now that Nigerian music industry is recognized globally. We know that the last Grammy Award we had in Nigeria that won at least 2 awards from the Grammy, which is the largest music stage in the world. Now, the establishment of collective management in various areas is also improving the capacity of creators of copyright works to earn from their works. And the new media platform that enable people to stream works has also helped Nigerian artists and authors to be able to gain entrance into the global market. So it's looking rich, or it's looking very positive for us. And if you look at the domestic environment, the internet penetration is very, very wide, especially in the wake of COVID, which now makes virtual interaction almost a daily routine. So most people are now consuming works on digital platforms, which is a plus for our industry and reduces cost of distribution of works. And the reform we have embarked upon in the law will certainly guarantee return on investment and promote further foreign investment into the copyright industry. These are things that make the copyright system in Nigeria a sure alternative to what we currently have as a single mono economy. When we diversify and emphasize on the creative economy, we are going to see a lot of growth in that sector. So the optimization of the gains of the copyright system demands strong synergy between authors and creators, public institutions, and private institutions like professional institutions like the Niesv. And I'm happy that they are already weighing in with the issue of IP valuation. Before now, it was very difficult for creators to obtain facility to expand their investment in creativity. But if we can have good valuation system that can evaluate a movie that is coming into stream in the next 2 years, then they can access funding. So we believe that the reform we are going to be making in the next few years, and with the efforts the Niesv is putting in place, we'll have a better system and we'll be able to have the multiple effects of our copyright system. So these are some of my thoughts, and I thank you for this system. And once again, I apologize for the difficulty we experienced earlier on in the system. I thank you for the opportunity to join this webinar. I shall be waiting for the questions that will be coming very shortly.
Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you, our capable and competent, well-informed Barrister Mike Apan on this assignment. We are so happy you have done a very great justice to this presentation. And what really impressed me, among others, is that we have some set of professionals like yours that are still really valuing the worth of estate surveyors and valuers, and importantly, in bringing us to this specialized area of the endeavor. We appreciate you as a body for the time you took to prepare for this presentation, as well as the efforts. I've seen you connecting gadgets here and there to ensure that at least you render this very memorable service. We pray God in His mercy to continue to be oiling the source of the knowledge and make it never to dry. And as we are moving on in this journey of ours, in this marriage or professional proficiency, we pray that one day your name and ours will be written in gold for ensuring that the copyrights and intellectual property of Nigerians are well recorded, kept, well valued, and they are well commercialized to ensure that all the people that are having these intangible assets have real worth for their property, either in alive or when they are no more. We thank you so much. Noble colleagues,
Thank you, sir.
Our Mr. Mike Apan has done a very great job for us here. And if to say it's a physical place now, I will say, okay, let's give him a very resounding applause for the job well done. But be it as it is, On our chat room, I've been seeing the commendation flowing in, and I still wish that all of us that are here should be able to do that as a means of encouraging him and every other person that is making presentation for us. Not only that now, he has done a very good job, and he has told us what are the roles that NCC is performing. He has been able to let us know that copyright is not the only one. There are so many other things that are added and piled up to ensure that the interests are done and they are well kept. Among others, he said that, okay, now as we are all going on, once you know you have a special talent, you don't need to look scatter before you do anything. First of all, go to their website, register that interest. It can be spreading this to our clients. It can be telling them that, sorry, that person who knows how to sing, that person who knows how to dance, that person who have all this intellectual something, let them register them. Once they are peculiar and it's not done by any other person, let them register it accordingly. And it's going to be at the point of commercialization that any other format things will now be added. I think this is a very good way forward to ensure that we are all moving ahead. And not only that, he has been able to let us know that aside from Nigerian Copyright Commission, we still have other professionals that are dealing with intellectual properties that need to be well kept and maintained. We have in the likes of Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, Nigerian Film Commission, and lots of other professionals to partner with. God will give all the strength to ensure this, and God will equally continue to enable us to move ahead. So at this point, I want all of us to please come up with our questions. We are waiting for the questions. So please, our questions, you can raise up your hand. You can raise up your hand so that I will call you, or you can send in your question. We attend to it accordingly. Please, we're having very few more minutes to do that, so that we'll not keep our guest lecturer standing for too long because of his schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My question is this. Can you hear me?
We are hearing you, sir.
Yes.
Okay. My question is to Mr. Akpan. First of all, let me thank him for coming on board. He has really sacrificed for us because we have a lot of things to do, especially since I think they have started since yesterday. My question is that when you are carrying out arbitration among right owners or the collective management group, when it comes to the monetary aspects, you do apply valuation as one of the prerequisites to aid your arbitration decision, or how do you go about it, sir?
Should I answer or wait for others to speak?
I think you can go ahead to answer so that we don't waste time.
Okay. I would say this of what you have just said. First and foremost, our collective management organization regulations enables us to set up an independent panel to mediate or settle dispute arising in a licensing process between a CMO and a user. Now, how we do this is that panel will normally have an expert in ADR, will have an accountant or somebody who is numerate, and probably a copyright expert also. So the combined skill of these three will be brought to bear. But more importantly, what they will rely on to know whether appropriate tariff is applied is to make a comparison with the best practice globally and then cascade it down to what is applicable in Nigeria based on the published tariff of the collective management organization and whatever agreement may have been in place. So that is what is done. Intellectual property evaluation is just a new subject, but it's not as if it was not possible before now for people to ascertain the value that can be attached to a work, because comparative works will attract similar value. So if we know what, for instance, an equivalent of a collective management organization, the tariff it uses to license people, say in Ghana, that could form a basis for arriving at a tariff that should be applicable in Nigeria for similar works. That's the way the panel goes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. And we have another question here from ESP Yomi Ibishola. And the question is, what has been the effort of the Commission to ensure that the IPS are not just registered, but also commercialized? Mr. Kwan.
From the perspective of the Nigerian Copyright Commission, management of intellectual property is very, very key to commercialization, effective management. That is why in the area of copyright, we established collective management organization to help authors to realize the potentials of their work by licensing out the use or public performance of works in the case of music, or in the case of like movie, public viewing of movie in places that the creators of those movies cannot reach. That's a form of commercialization. When you talk about IP commercialization, of course, licensing is very key in IP commercialization and distribution. So there are many other initiatives that come into play, like when we monitor distribution outlets or monitor production outlet, it is to ensure that the authors are not fleeced out of the genuine benefits of their works by over-invoicing, by unscrupulous producers who might produce over and above and push them into the market. We also encourage people to establish outlets for genuine work, because one of the complaints we often find is that people don't know where to go to obtain genuine copies of copyright work. So these are some of the initiatives we put in place.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mike. And I want to believe you really touched the question. The next question is the one from ESP Adeshola Adebayo, which says, is there any collaborative effort among copyright commission across the countries in Africa?
Indeed, there is. There is. Nigeria belongs to a international community of copyright treaties, like the Berne Union. We are a member of the Berne Union, and as a member of the Berne Union, we ordinarily collaborate with other countries who are in the Berne Union, even though it goes beyond Africa. But in WIPO that administers this treaty, we have what we call Africa Group. That is where most African countries interact to forge policies and get a common ground when it comes to copyright issues. But from the point of view of, say, West African region, ECOWAS, ECOWAS has what we call ECOWAS Intellectual Property Observatory. At some point, I personally served as a rapporteur of that observatory some years back, and Nigeria plays a very key role there in forging the regional cooperation between Nigeria and other West African countries. But let me also say this. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, to which Nigeria has signed up to. One of the annexures to that agreement is on intellectual property rights. So Nigeria will play a key role in the negotiation of that annexure to the agreement, and it promises to create a platform for inter-Africa or intra-Africa cooperation in the area of intellectual property intellectual property protection. And when you look at Africa, the economic aspect of Africa and trade, Nigeria plays a dominant role in this region when it comes to trade and commerce. Between South Africa and Nigeria and Egypt, we are the dominant forces. And obviously among these three, Nigeria stands tall. Of course, we know that a few years back, Nigeria was the largest economy in the Sub-African region, and this position has not been altered significantly. Even though we may not be categorized as the #1 economy, but certainly we have a large economy with a large intellectual property cash that enables us to play a key role in the region.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mike. In fact, to say the least, we are most endowed. We still have another one question here before you go, sir. And that the question says, based on the last question on commercialization of IP, where does valuation comes in?
Okay, I had already said that valuation comes in when you look at the terms of licensing and the worth of the work. For instance, when you look at IP valuation, there are very many methods of valuation. And one of the methods of valuation is to look at the prevalence rate of similar works in the marketplace. And I referred to that. Those who sit in settlement of dispute will consider best practices regarding the valuation of licenses that are issued. That is one method of valuation. So it plays a critical role in dispute settlement.
Okay, sir. I still have another question here from Mr. Tunji Aino. He said, considering the legal and judiciary process in Nigeria, which is really characterized with process delay and slowishness, how can litigation against any infringement against any intellectual property be properly followed up without any sabotage to the process?
Okay.
You get me, sir?
Yes, I got it. Yes, this is one of the challenges I highlighted. The judicial system in Nigeria does not only affect intellectual property cases, it's across the board, land cases and so on and so forth. But even in the case of intellectual property like copyright, there are certain legal presumptions that are available when you go to court that you don't need to prove certain issues. So the burden of proof is lighter in copyright cases. The average time that copyright cases spend in courts are between 1 and 3 years before you can get a final judgment. It's not like going into a land case that can last for decades. Copyright cases still enjoy certain leverage because of the facility of the law that allows what we call presumptions that lightens the burden of proof. But when you talk about strengthening the adjudicatory system, it boils down to the knowledge of the copyright system by the judges and the lawyers involved. What we've come to see is that there is a very high level of interest in the Nigerian bar of people now specializing in intellectual property. And that is beginning to impact litigation. And when we are talking about impacting litigation, impacting positively in the sense that advocacy in intellectual property cases are becoming better now than before. And judges, and there are now books that people write that makes it easy for judges to have authority to decide Nigerian cases in line with Nigerian laws. In terms of how do we safeguard that there is no hanky-panky, of course, we must give the benefit of the doubt to the judges that they only will rely on the position of the law to rule on the cases. So far, what I can say in terms of adjudication of copyright cases is that we are beginning to see very positive outcomes in the courts in Nigeria, even though there are one or two cases that we think the judges could have looked more critically at the area of the law. But all is looking better with the improved professionalism in the bar and specialization in the bar. So I think adjudication of copyright cases will be better in the near future.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mike. But before I go, I still have a question here. And those, like you've touched on it before, which says, since the valuation of IP is relatively new to us, what method of approach was being adopted before now in realizing the market value of the IP? So, and if I got you right in your earlier explanation, until you said what you used to do is the type of right we are talking about, what is the contemporary worth in the market? That's what you've been.
Yes, that in itself is a method of IP valuation. That in itself is a method of IP valuation. Of course, somebody could also look at the market. I mean, even in the normal courts, when you take a matter to court and the court has to award damages, it takes into consideration the infringement and what could have accrued by way of benefit or remuneration to the owner of the rights if there was no such infringement or through the act of infringement. There is what we call in law account of profit. If the court orders account of profit in a particular infringement case, then it will mean that there will be a process to discover how much money has been made by the infringer who infringed on the right, and whatever profit that comes from that will of course form the basis of the court ruling, in addition to punitive and exemplary damages that may be awarded in favor of the right owner. So, but in the case of, say, proper mediation, similar tendencies could be used in addition to what I had earlier said also. Let me give you an instance. If you go to a publisher and you agreed with a publisher that a publisher should issue 10,000 copies of their title, and he has issued 10,000 copies, and at the end of the day, a publisher comes and says he could only sell this number or gives you a number that, and you are not satisfied and you take the matter to maybe a mediation, the mediators will look at what was the work that was to be in the public domain, and did it go to the public domain? If there are works that, if it was through negligence of the publisher, what would have accrued to the owner of the rights if the publisher was not negligent? And this will form the value of what was produced will first and foremost be countenanced. And you can take the value from the market, normal market value of each copy of that work, and you evaluate what that, and you take off from there. So there are very many evaluation methods. What the new addition that now intellectual property valuation will add to our system is that independent experts will be brought in to now assess this value. It will not just be about the judge making a ruling or the mediators. With an independent evaluation, if you have done it, take for instance, if it is a company that is managing the rights, and at the end of the year, you have valued your IP portfolio, and that specific IP asset has been valued, that will be the starting point for attaching any value to the work, and it will ease the work of adjudication and mediation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akpan. We cannot thank you enough for taking us through this process this far. We truly value your time and we value your presentation. Noble colleagues, I think we all enjoyed this session, and we pray that God in His mercy will continue to be on the side of our presenter, to strengthen NCC as a body, Niesv as a body, and all of us as individuals to ensure that we have the product and the good ending of this endeavor. Thank you very much. So, my chairman.
I thank you, the moderator, for being patient with me in spite of the tech challenges I faced. It's not only Nigeria that you find this. Globally, this is happening. This happens, but that's by the way, and I'm happy I was able to come back and complete this presentation. I thank the Niesv, and I commend the Business Asset and Intellectual Property Division of Niesv for this pioneering effort. Please always count on the Nigerian Copyright Commission to collaborate with you in going forward with all the issues that will need our attention. Thank you so much. On that note, please kindly permit me to drop off the platform as I have another meeting coming up in the next 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Please, sir, before you leave, let my chairman respond briefly, sir. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Akpan, I really appreciate you. You have always been a friend, especially on this route, and you have always shown interest in us. We really, really appreciate you. And we also agree with the terms. We have made the request and the DG has granted us the request, and we are going to make good use of it in partnership. In less than 2 weeks, you are going to get our reply to your mail by God's grace. We really appreciate you. You are welcome. Thank you very much, sir. Regards to the DG.
Thank you, Lekon. I appreciate everything you have done and for bringing me on board. Thank you so much. And bye. Have a wonderful session going forward.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Moderator. We can't hear you. Hello. Your audio, please.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now. So let's move forward, please. Let me recognize Mr. Aino in the house. That is one of our presenters on Tuesday. Is still with us, and we really appreciate your presence, sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. While appreciating Mr. Ina once again, want to bring in the second presenter of this morning, and I'm talking in person of ESP Dr. discussing on of IP valuation. Please, Dr. Ashaolu, you are welcome on board. Thank you very much, sir. Yes,
sir. My past president, and I think I can see the presence of our first vice president also on board. I recognize you, sirs. My chairman and dear noble colleagues, I say good morning to every one of us. And we welcome back home because we have been receiving lecture from legal friends. And on Tuesday also, we heard from another lawyer and an accountant. Now we are within ourselves. And the topic before me is adopting appropriate. Sorry, sir. Mr. Chairman, Please, can you get the slide for me
Okay.
from your end?
Yes.
Sorry, sir.
Yes. You have the slide now, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So the topic before us now is adopting appropriate methods of intellectual property valuation. May I call it an introduction because it's like going into the middle of training before the preliminaries. So there is no how we'll be able to do justice to appropriate methods if you don't know what we are applying the methods to. And so I decided to add that sub-theme and introduction. That at the end of the presentation, the next slide, please, sir. That I expect that we be able to have an overview of the scope of what constitutes IP assets, understand the peculiarities of IP as a class of property assets, and appreciate its multidisciplinary nature, both in terms of knowledge, management, and even the valuation thereof. We are trying to assert it, and because we stand the best ground, provided we are able to assert our authority and display needed expertise, because we are in a very wide turf, and expertise have been built up by several group of professionals, and there are even specialists in it. And so, if we want to play an acceptable role in their midst, we must be able to demonstrate that we really belong to that knowledge category. And so, I also believe that at the end, we have an idea of the approaches to property valuation as a circumstantial issue, not something that is fixed. So that you don't expect that at the end of the day, I will say the best method is income, the best method is cost, or cost is not applicable. It depends on what you are valuing, for what purpose, and so many other factors that we are going to be going through. So that the ultimate end result is for us to know that we need to expand our knowledge as to what constitutes property assets. Because hitherto, we have been too long on real estate, that even when we're supposed to diversify to other tangible assets like machinery and other things, unfortunately, our background was not strong enough. And that is why we'll be having conflict with engineers and some other professional groups like that. So as introduction, I say we are looking at the keywords: appropriate. What is appropriate? What is ID? Intellectual property and the methods of valuation. Well, thank God we are all professionals here, and except maybe very few of us that are in academics. But can we gather like this and say we are teaching ourselves methods of valuation when we have veterans in practice already that have even gone beyond the theoretical understanding of this thing? They have applied special cases that needed to even be captured by academics. So definitely, I'm not here to teach us method of valuation, but we may have another new perspective to looking at it. Then IP, where we all know IP, intellectual property. So many people have been taking us through it, but when we say we want to advise on the what, I believe there is a need for us to be conversant with what we are advising on. So, do we have sufficient understanding and knowledge of IP? The way we do that of real estate, because we can sit down in our rooms, we send our boys to the field, they come out, they come back. Even from there, by the time we are looking through their notes, we can see some mix-up. That if you say the property is this, then this other statement cannot be correct, because we are well at home with real estate. But can we demonstrate such deep understanding? Like in those days, I asked somebody in my place, because he was a vehicle inspection officer. There was this rumor that even if he's snoring and he hears the start of a vehicle on the road, he knows the fault. We used to think that it was wizardry, until I got to know that it is just being expert in his field. So how do we determine the methods that are appropriate for us to adopt? In the first instance, the next slide, yes, we should realize that IP is the asset of the present and the future. Humanity has gone through phases of living, from nomadic existence to settled agrarian practice. And I want to believe from our intro to estate in those days that the word estate was actually referring to land, because original estate surveyors, or even the cost surveyors then, were measurers of land on behalf of the bourgeoisie landowners, like agents, like servants. Later, it now turned to a profession. So that was when real estate started as a field of study and a discipline. That was the way we started. But humanity moved from being agrarian to becoming industrial. And machine learning now took preeminence over land. Already, our curriculum has not fully adjusted. From machine learning, we now move to the era of information, when electronics was now dominating. I mean, that was maybe in the past few decades, until we got to where we are now, because the world is a global village, even though our economy might not have catch up as expected, but then the interaction, the knowledge spread and everything, we cannot hide from it. We just have to keep pace with what is going on in the world, that we are now in the creative age. And the best 500 companies rated by Osotomo, I mean, it's an organization in the US, we are told that as of 1975, only about 70% of assets of these leading 500 firms were in the nature of intangibles as of 1975. And it moved gradually. By year 2005, it rose up to 80%. But by year 2020, as you can see in that chart, leading 500 firms globally, the percentage of intangible assets of their business rose up to 90. And later in the lecture, I will refer to one local firm, a Nigerian firm like that, where we realize that even the IP content of their assets is worth more than 90%. We will get to that very soon. So we now say, okay, intangible. Incidentally, I wrote a small book in 2016. This faculty had not come into existence. They had been advocating it for some years that we should be property valuers and not estate valuers. And so, and my concept of property was both tangible and intangible. And that's why in that book, I addressed intellectual property, I addressed goodwill, I addressed plant and machinery, not even knowing that we end up having a faculty on business assets and intellectual property. I think the faculty now came on board. That book was published March 2016. I think the faculty was now formed maybe towards the end of the year. So intangible assets actually is a combination of goodwill and IP. Now, goodwill is an umbrella that can even cover IP, because anything other than tangible, separable, tangible asset can be referred to as goodwill. I think whatever is giving you an advantage. And all this IP also, they only give you advantage over your competitors. And so everything, but goodwill to an accountant and even practically is something that you cannot identify. It's something that is difficult to even recognize. When you say you want to value it, I mean, it's an abstract asset. But then the IP subset of intangible assets can be differentiated because they must have 4 qualities. One, they must have specific identity or nomenclature or name, like we are saying, patent, this and that. But goodwill, you can only categorize goodwill, locational goodwill, personal goodwill, non-personal goodwill. Everything has to do with goodwill. But with IP, we can be talking of patents, trademark, trade secrets, copyrights, other things like that. They have their name. They have definite origin. They came into existence at a particular point in time. It's difficult to trace the history of goodwill in a business. You don't know. I mean, you don't discover that maybe you are making more profit than expected. The source could be your staff, could be your entrepreneurial acumen, could be your location, could be anything, could even be some of your customers or contractual partners. You cannot really trace it. You don't know when it started, and it may disappear without you knowing as well. But an IP has definite origin. It has legal recognition and protection. Either it is created directly under the law or automatic, like copyright, for instance, where we just be told. Once you can express your idea in a medium, copyright exists automatically. The idea is not covered, it's your expression that are covered by that copyright. Then it has definable lifespan, of course. This depends because some could be as low as 5 to 10 years. Some, like patents, maybe 20 years. Copyright, we even outlive you maybe after your death, another 50 to 70 years, depending. The next slide, please. So, hello, sir. Please let me put the, okay. The next slide, please. I hope you are hearing me, sir. Hello.
We
Please,
can hear you. We can hear
okay.
you.
Okay,
We can
okay.
hear you, sir.
Okay,
I
so
mean, we can hear you, but
now,
if you can just make it
all
more
right,
audible,
sir.
sir.
All right, sir. Yeah, so we continue. Meaning and scope of IP assets. Of course, I'm not going to go deep into that, but suffice to just mention here. We just listen to copyright. IP is a subset of intangible, like I said, but WIPO will even tell you that there are two types of IP: industrial property and copyrights. Industrial property are those that have to do with business. They operate within business circle, either technological type in form of patents, trade secrets, processes and formula. I mean, technology-based IP. Then there are those that have to do with marketing, recognition. I mean, recognizing your product. I mean, in the marketplace, giving it a unique outlook, unique acceptance, and all those things. So, in form of trademark, trade dress, or industrial design, geographical indication that is like maybe we talk of whiskey coming from somewhere in I think Switzerland now, or Gari Jebu, Agege bread. If all those things were to be formally recognized like that, it's a form of geographical indication because quality associated with where they came from. And the source are such that they will have collaborated among themselves to protect the integrity and the quality of that product so that if any other person is bringing a fake person, you will now know that definitely this is not Gari Jebu or this is not Nama Agege bread. So, I mean, it must originate from that place and they must have followed a particular method of production and material quality and other things like that, so that the final result will be such that will be commensurate with, I mean, the kind of standard they are maintaining within that geographical area. So, IP can result from your relationship with customers. Maybe orders you are receiving, the kind of customer list you have. There are some people in business, maybe they are making it because of their association with some conglomerates who have given them retainership. And such, we consider IP against your competitors because they are the one driving profitability into your business. So it could be in form of your relationship with customers also. I mean, there are some unique relationships you may build that is difficult for people to snatch those customers from you. So it can be contract-based, probably because we went into that business, you receive permits or license from the government in form of operational permits or license to operate. It could even be license of IP from the owner or holder of that IP, or in form of a franchise, or in form of contract of employment, service agreement, could be maintenance service, could be supply service, could be marketing service, export service and other things like that, agreement you have with people like that, that are considered a kind of an advantage to your business. So the last one is the literary and artistic. Like that one is very pervasive across individuals and businesses. So that's why it's given that special category. That while we look at the first four as industrial property, the last one is given a class of its own, copyright, so that it could be associated with business, it could be associated with individuals. Who are recognized IP valuers? This is where to say when the accountant was making his presentation 2 days ago, some of us were getting agitated. In fact, trade secret is what has been driving Coca-Cola for more than a century. But trade secret is not recognized in balance sheet because it has no cost foundation. And accountant will even tell you that any asset that has not gone through a transaction and has no cost background cannot enter into balance sheet because your professional valuation to them is a green job. I mean, there is no guarantee that the figure you are quoting will be realizable in the marketplace. And so, subsequently, I mean, if an asset has been admitted that it can be entered into balance sheet, thereafter, you may be able to do maybe a revaluation through other means, and it will be allowed. But for it to even be captured in the first instance, it must qualify. But who are those who have been recognized as IP values? They listed about 25 of them. Although I reproduced just about 20 here. And you see that, I mean, globally, these were those that are leading IP valuers. And I went through the list of really, there is no person, I mean, there is no firm into real estate among them. They are mainly accounting firms. One of them is engineering firm or dedicated firms for IP consultancy and a legal firm. Where, I mean, it's not, I mean, this is not to be unexpected because IP, like I said, is just upcoming. And it's difficult to separate IP from other business assets. They are intangible in nature, and we are just trying to introduce ourselves that IP is an asset like any other property asset, and that if we are property valuers, definitely it should come under the scope of our services. And so let's look at the salient features of IP assets so that probably it will give us some inkling as to why our people have not been that prominent in it. One, like I said, is just an evolving asset category because we are just moving from the material to the immaterial, from the tangible to the tangible. And so globally, it's not just in Nigeria. IP is an evolving asset. Then some of them are internally generated, created without cost. Like you may spend so much maintaining trade secrets, but trade secret is just confidential information, maybe locked up in a vault in your office, or secret that is in the mind of directors that with oath of secrecy, all these things must not be divulged. Even when you employ staff, you enter into confidential agreement with them that they must not reveal this information. Even when they leave your employment, they must not compete with you because they are access to, I mean, they are accessory to this thing. They must sign all those contracts before they even start work with you. And so, if they are internally generated, it may come from your research and development unit. But like we said, I mean, the accountant took us through 2 days ago that some may not qualify for identification as separate assets. And all your expenses there may just be treated as expense. But then we know that these are part of what makes your business unique. You are conscious of it, but how do we know the what? We'll come to that later. For many businesses that are not knowledge or technology based, IP value is residual because, to be sincere, although we may say we are moving from tangible to intangible, but then your land, your building, your machinery, your furniture. If your company ceases to exist, or if they are stolen, they can be sold for particular prices. And when you are trying to itemize your assets, your worth, and everything, they are the, I mean, it's natural, they are the first thing that will attract your attention. But then, if you are diligent enough now to say you are analyzing performance of your business, you may now discover that those tangible assets are making little or less contribution to the intangible one that we are discussing now. And that is why, but then, hello, sir. Okay. But another thing is that IP assets on their own, if they are not properly managed and commercialized, they may be worth nothing. There are many people, unfortunately, in Nigeria, most of the patents our people are holding are something they call a deposit system of grants, because we don't have the our patent registry or patent office. They don't have the manpower, the personnel, the expertise to carry out necessary search and examination as to whether that patent will work, whether it will be technically sound, and to even confirm whether somebody is practicing the same patent elsewhere globally or even within the country. You see, because all those things are very expensive and they take a lot of time. And apparently, our manufacturing, our economic system is very weak. And I mean, it's not considered worthwhile. Maybe if you are continuing at the rate at which you are developing in the 70s and 80s, maybe will have matured beyond that. But then, because most of the patents being granted in Nigeria are not really worth the while at all. Because if you subject them, I have a colleague very close to me in those days. He got a patent. He said it has to do with recycling waste to generate electricity. I asked him, I said, you have been granted this patent. He got the patent eventually, I think, around 2018. Okay, let me see the design. Let me see. I mean, once the patent is in your hand, there is nothing to hold again. All the information, the design, the processing, everything should be open. All he was giving me was just maybe because of little education, kind of Ramshackle feasibility viability analysis on how you can generate billions from. I told you, I said, these things are in use, even some more sophisticated systems are in use from my search online in different countries. Let me see what is unique about your own. So to him, he has a patent, but unfortunately, it's a worthless patent. And there are many like that. By the time you approach big time manufacturers and those that are supposed to understand, I mean, commercialize it for you, they go through it, they just discover that either it's belated or it's not comprehensive enough, or it's something that is already in public domain that they cannot risk their integrity to say they are practicing it for you. So, hello, okay, sir. Then I said, like, I've been an abstract asset, value of IP assets are not as stable as those of their tangible counterparts. Your vehicle, either you use it or not, I mean, your furniture and everything, your land, your building, at any point in time, you can always guarantee a particular value realization for them. But such is not the same with IP. IP may be worth so much today, any little thing may happen, and the value may be eroded or getting close to zero. So, okay, the other one I said, okay, I think I've discussed that one, that if it doesn't have any solid background, okay, if there is no transaction history, okay, I will come to this issue of transaction history because either it is bought or sold. Then just the same thing with goodwill. It can provide foundation for value of goodwill as well. When a company has been bought, maybe the asset, physical asset or tangible asset was worth 5 billion, but somebody pays 7 billion. You now know that the premium, I mean, the 2 billion extra was for intangible assets. And so if there has been a transaction history, it can enter straight away into balance sheet that so much was paid for balance, I mean, for goodwill or for IP. But then another aspect that we should be careful of you say, it's easy for us to talk of IP. And you're analyzing company business performance and everything like that. You now say that, oh, normally this will have made a profit of X naira, but they have made X plus 5. So the extra 5 represents return on intangible assets or IP or whatever. That is a blanket language. Now we know that IP are in different forms. And a client can also say, come and value my trade secrets, come and value my patent, come and value my this thing. Now, what constitutes IP to that business may, by the time you start doing the scheduling, the identification, you may discover that the items are more than 30 and it's giving you instruction to value only one. How do you now segregate the performance of that very one as against the others? These are some of the reasons why I said this paper is just introduction to open our mind, because we are talking of appropriate approach or appropriate method. Even in real estate, I will come to that very soon. In real estate, it is not easy to just give a blanket answer to which is the best method of valuing a residential property. So, but the truth is this: why we need to take this challenge serious is that accountants, engineers, lawyers, they are all into it. Now, if you have a company XYZ that said they want to do asset valuation, and you go there as an estate surveyor, you are doing the land and building this and that, they now give the plant and machinery to another firm and the intangible assets to another company. At the end of the day, how do you aggregate your figures? You came from different background, different philosophy, different standards, different knowledge, this thing. Now, it's not easy to harmonize, but if there's a dedicated profession, you are a valuer. Even if you must use specialist assistants, but then by the time you are using specialist assistants, you must be able to communicate. So you must have a working knowledge of what they are advising you on as well, because you are a property valuer, not an estate valuer, not a machinery valuer, not an IP valuer, but a property valuer generally. And so you need little knowledge of different types of property so that you'll be able to coordinate the activities of whoever is assisting you in the exercise. So that at the end of the day, it will be easier for you having like what we call tone of valuation in rating. We also have the same spirit, underline all the figures that you will be quoting so that there will be consistency. So that is more reason why we have to take it as a challenge that we are property valuers and IP is a property. But as long as we continue to carry on the code of estate, they attach us to land and they feel that we are straying out of our area of competence. Musakadi standard, like I said, we not accept okay, that's for this thing. The good thing is the man that took us, Mr. Harper, he is a lawyer and his organization is on copyright. So most of the evaluation questions we are throwing to him had to do with copyright and infringement of copyright. That is just a little subset of violation of IP. The same thing when accountant was taking us on Tuesday. It was just addressing valuation for the purpose of financial reporting. Triggers of property valuation, I think, yes, they are more than 10. So all we've been hearing from this, our senior presenters are addressing just 2 purposes. So we still have other purposes to look at so that we should not be discouraged to say maybe accountant said that trade secret cannot be entered into balances because it has no transactional history, it has no cost. But then that is not the only purpose. You just made an invention. You needed a venture capitalist or an angel investor that will come and fund the idea so that you come to realization. The person may now say, okay, hello, sir. Sorry, my time is up.
We are with you, sir, but if you can try to make it a bit faster, sir.
Yeah, I'm almost through, please. I'm almost through.
All right, sir.
So triggers of valuation, like I said, entry into business as an inventor or innovator, you will need valuation. You may even need to do viability analysis. When you want to commercialize, maybe you want to assign your interest, you want to license, you want to go into franchise agreements, you need valuation. You want to go into strategic partnership on a startup business, maybe you want to cooperate with other people, you need valuation to be able to do the sharing, to know how much the other person must be. Merger and acquisition deals, maybe one company trying to go into an alliance with another existing company, valuation has to be done. Share price, you want to go into capital market, you turn your asset to CS through valuation. You want to take a facility, using it as a cogent collateral, or maybe dispute resolution or litigation like we were taken through recently. The previous lecture, valuation is needed. But your business is going to bankruptcy, or there's a divorce between your partners, or whoever, the IP element there will have to be valued. Maybe for financial reporting or transition planning purposes, valuation is needed as an input. Or maybe you want to do some internal restructuring, you want to know what is really driving your business. You need valuation, maybe for sale, for purchase, and all those things like that. Now, IP valuation can be in form of qualitative assessment, because IP itself is abstract. So it's difficult at times to put naira and figure on abstract assets. So maybe what you want to know is, how important is this? Highly important, important, not important. It can be a scale of 3, scale of 5, like that, a kind of a rating. Or you may have some other indicators, qualitative. So at the end of the day, you'll be able to rank different IP according to their level of importance. Probably you are finding it difficult to maintain some, and probably you want to give out some license, or you want to do away with spending so much, maintaining them on yearly basis or whatever like that. Then we have the quantitative. No matter the asset we are valuing, there are just 3 measures of value: the cost, the income, and the price. The way we apply them is what differs. For cost, it can be the historic cost, replication cost, that is exact this thing, taking into consideration your abortive personality, or it could be replacement, that is simple substitute. Then income can be a way of looking at productivity of that asset into your business. So either going through using the common discounted cash flow, risk adjusted net present value, or royalty trade-off. That is, you own it. Suppose you did not own it, you will have licensed it. So how much will you have be ready to pay, or how much is being paid or similar by others who don't own it, or if you are to give it out, how much is royalty as an approximation of income. Then price will be recent transactions, although that's in a very developed economy, or maybe in some environment, IP, this thing are auctioned. And so you may be able to do some analysis of auction sales and come up with the idea of this thing. Then maybe for those that are quoted on the stock exchange, the sale price of a typical company that is IP based. If the IP items there are similar to the one you are valuing, you can also use the value of the shares as an approximation of the value of your own assets. So now I say IP valuation methods and methods. Let's look at real estate, for instance. I want to value a residential property. I need to know which type of residential property is it. Is it medium density, low density, or high density type, bungalow, tenement, or whatever? Why do I need it? Is it for mortgage, for insurance? Is it completed or uncompleted development? Where is it located? Rural or urban, high class or whatever? What is the state of the market, and what are the available data? All this will determine even the measure of value I can adopt. If it's insurance, for instance, definitely the measure will be cost. If it's undeveloped, if it's not fully developed, I will be using a combination of cost and maybe one other method. If it's in a rural area, I may not have option other than cost. So, whereas investment type of a residential property, we will say the best method is income. If it is for mortgage, you say, yes, they want realization. So no matter the method you are using, you must also be able to interpose it into the market so that comparison element must be brought in. So you see now, depending on the purpose, depending on the circumstance, depending on the type, depending on the location, the measures and the method will differ. Because we are at home with real estate. The same thing happens with IP. So, and until we understand IP inside out like that, we may not really know how to determine which measure is appropriate, which method, so that it's not just something that we can give blanket answer to. And I say there's this local fintech company that was transacted upon October last year. I mean, I did a little investigation. I discovered that 2 young Nigerians own that company, although they incorporated it in US, but the 2 of them trained in Nigeria. And as at October 2020, we understand that the total invested fund into that business was $21 million. Their head office is in Ikeja here, or Joel Ogunaike Street. Although I've not been there, I don't know whether they own it or this thing. And they have just 6 staff. So you can imagine the size of their office, the number of furniture that we have around those things. And it's, I mean, because it's an IP-driven firm. But at the end of the day, when this US Stripe company wanted to acquire them, they must have done evaluation at their end. And this our gentlemen also must have done valuation before they went into negotiation. At the end of the day, they agree on 200 million. Now, what tangible components? Even their total investment was 21 million. I mean, all the monetary investment that are going into their business. The business was just about maybe 5 years old as at that time. But we were told that their website alone, that is where the technicality comes in. 66 technologies were built into their website as bells and whistles, protection and everything like that to make it watertight and impenetrable to infringers. And that they own 29 of these. So maybe in form of patent, in form of trade secret, others must have been under license, one form or the other, licensed in. They have a customer base of about 60,000 customers across different sectors, especially Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. Now, we are real estate valuers. If you don't do background study and competence acquisition in the area of IP, if they give us, I mean, when those boys were going to that transaction and they have contacted us, or contracted us rather, what and what are we going to build into the valuation? Where are we going to appreciate? Are we going, I mean, is it going to be guesswork? I mean, this is not a question of maybe the best method is it. No, it is when you are in it that the best method will come up. When you understand it. I give you an example. I'm sorry, that's the last slide. I was a young surveyor in 1989 in the days of a technical committee of commercialization. I was the man and they gave us this valuation of a brewery in one of the north central states. At the end of the day, I was the manager of Ariman and Akuda, handled the job. I was based in Kaduna then. Then a month later, they summoned us. I received a letter summoning us to Central Hotel in Kano to come and defend the work. Invariably, TC officers were expecting Chief Ariman, who had long retired from practice. But I got there, they were surprised. They said, "Where is your principal partner?" I said he was in Lagos. They said, "No, we need the person who did this job." I said, "I did it." I mean, they were amazed. You did this valuation? Because they felt that the figure I got was far beyond their expectation. And most of them were senior members of ICANN and all those things. But fortunate enough, I had experience in something very similar. And the machines, when I got to the bureau, were not too strict to me. And in our office in Benin, we had a teles machine. So when we get to site, because there was no telephone, I mean, the telephone, this thing was not this thing, there was no email and other things. Technology was very low in those days. So we always try to check, because it was the, I mean, easiest means of international communication at that time, to get the address of the supplier or manufacturer and the teles number. I did. I sent it to Benin. They helped me send message and they confirmed some figures for me. I mean, by the time I was defending the figure, when they saw the evidences, the extent I went, I mean, they had to bow. Later, one of the panelists came out. He said that when they saw me, when I claimed that I did the job, that they have already, in fact, they were almost concluded that they didn't want to hear anything from me. But that the way I took them through the stages, the basis, the method, the source of data, that, I mean, I disabused their mind, that they came with premeditated this thing that we are going to throw away the report. At the end of the day, to the glory of God, they succeeded in privatizing at almost our quoted price. So that is the essence of we being explicit. We display understanding, experience, and competence. What we are doing, so that even when we are before client, because valuation is not about right figure. It's all about you being able to demonstrate that you have the necessary training, you are competent, you are experienced, and circumstances of the exercise are such that you have taken fully into cognizance that other social circumstance based on information at your disposal, this and that, and you lay everything bare on this thing, you will be weak and you will have to succumb. And that is the level we need to get to as valuers if we are going to have headway in IP. So that question of adopting the appropriate method or approach we always service when we do our proper analysis in every case before us. Thank you. That's the end of the presentation, sir.
Thank you very much, our Dr. Ashaolu. It's been a very wonderful time well spent with you. I want to truly appreciate you for making sure that our time worth the investment you are giving to it. On a more lighter note, from where our presenter stopped, I'll just say, okay, sir, with those set of experience which you have used while you were in Kaduna or up north then till now, have you followed your own IP as a professional? Okay, noble colleagues, our senior fellows in the House, our president, past president, and every noble colleagues listening to this lecture. When Dr. Ashaolu started, he said this is rather going to be an introduction to what is to delve in. And at the end of the presentation, I want to believe all of us will agree that before going to the method, we need to really know what constitutes the IP and the extent to which we have to dig for us to be able to move ahead. I think our doctor has gone to a very large extent to really let us appreciate that approaches could be circumstantial, but the important thing is to get to know actually what we are going to look for. And from what he has given to us so far, I want to believe going into the IP valuation is like seeking for another course that really needs to be well prepared for and well grounded in. I want to thank him and other set of people and professional colleagues that made the efforts to start a department, a course in a department in the institution where he lectures. And then I want to equally employ us that definitely we'll be having this constant interaction between the professional, within the profession and the academics, so that we will have this continuous upgrading of our knowledge. And then in not too distant a time, we will be able to come to term and have a very solid background in this area of specialized knowledge. Once again, on behalf of the entire team of business assets and IP, I want to thank again Dr. Ashaolu for the presentation. But while going on, I want to quickly appreciate our accountant, Mr. Aino, Joseph Tunji, he has an observation here. And the observation was that trade secrets can be valued and reported on financial position as an IP under the intangible asset. And what he said was that the goodwill cannot be capitalized as an asset, nor be amortized, because it's an infinite intangible asset, since it has an indefinite lifespan that cannot be fully determined. So definitely, as we are going on, we appreciate the contribution of our accountant, and while trying to going on, we know this is a very novel area of our profession, and we know that as we move on, there will be a generation of knowledge, and definitely the more we interacted within ourselves, the more proficient we become, and the more clearer will be the means of getting our things to be done. To Mr. Aino, we really appreciate you, not only because of your presence and your contribution so far, but for your patience since morning. You really impressed us, and we believe that definitely we will take this to a more higher pedestal by God's grace.
You, Thank you, sir.
So at this particular time, I want to call on all participants on the platform that our panelists has done great job. Our presenters has given us what we are yearning for. It is now the time for us to come up now and show that we have been listening, and then we definitely want to show them we have learned one or two things. And that means it's time for us to go to the question and answer time. Please, you can type your question directly where we are having the question and answer page, or you can send them in as a chat on the platform. Please, we are awaiting your question and answer. But pending the time, my chairman, I would love you to say a word of thank you to Dr. Ashaolu for his presentation. My chairman, sir.
We really thank Dr. Ashaolu for this work. I used to call him Eda, and he has always been with us. Wherever we are going, he's always ready to go with us, even to schools, traveling, and all the rest like that. And he has always even contributed more. I know that he's still writing exam with WIPO, but he still find time to do justice to this and able to present it to us at this maiden edition of our summit. I really appreciate you, sir, and we thank you for your effort. Thank you for the encouragement that you have been giving to us also. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I would also like to mention to us, all the participants, the same code that we use to log in. Can also use the same code to download our certificate after this session, so that you can download it as a participant. You have a certificate to download. So please bear it in mind. So I think we should go to the question and answer time. Mr. Moderator.
My chairman, thank you very much. But before we go into the question and answer time, everyone on the platform have been asking for the copy of the presented papers. So I know
we are going to make it available.
Okay, so and
yeah, it's going to be available.
Everyone on the platform, I'm sure we've gotten that directly from our chairman, that all the papers presented so far will be made available to all of us. So please, let's be on the lookout for all these papers. So please, at this material time, we are at the question and answer time, and this is one of the important parts of this presentation. This is the evaluation section of it. the one that touches on all of us as professionals. So our yearning is that definitely anything we do now, every one of us should be able to have one thing or the other to ask on. Either as a comment, a clarification, an addition, or a question, because this is definitely a new arm of the profession that should spur all of us to keep asking. And our senior ones who are no longer having this strength of running up and down, we can be leveraging on their goodwill or their IP now. If I can recollect, I think our barrister or the accountant mentioned it 2 days ago, that the big firms now who had made big name and people respect them, I think some of them can be using their name as a franchise. I want to believe like Niesv. Niesv has been in Nigeria for how many years? And we have so many fellows there, we have so many managers, we have so many regional managers, but Niesv still remain Niesv. And they're all doing fine. So as a means of making sure that, yes, we are digging deep into this profession with a very solid background, we should be looking to all of this. So thank you very much. I think I have a question here from Adesola Adibayo. He said, Dr. Thomas Ashaolu, thank you so much for this valuable education in IP. Sir, as one of the pioneer ESC in this specialized aspect of our profession, can some of us that have interest in joining, can some of us who have interest join you on IP evaluation assignment pro bono whenever you have one? This is the practical experience is higher than classroom knowledge. So our doctor, sir. Hello.
Hello. Yes, I had a question.
Okay.
Actually, we are still at advocacy level, but and our intention is that those who have been discussing with, educated them, by the time the jobs start coming in, for the first set, we want to involve as many of our members, committed members especially, as possible, so that we all learn the practical aspect of it together. So I will encourage the person asking that question to please sustain his membership of the faculty so that he will be carried along.
Thank you very much. So the next one is from our ESC Raji Adewale, and the question is a very straight one. He said, how do we carry out valuation of goodwill as intellectual property? Dr. Sir?
Yes, like I said, goodwill is a very fluid asset because you never know when you stray into the domain of IP in the name of goodwill. The book I wrote, I have a whole chapter devoted to goodwill, but the way goodwill is treated, as at the time, goodwill was really handled as an asset. IP had not really come up as separable assets under intangible. Because if you are not careful, when you say you are valuing goodwill, you are valuing the whole of intangible assets. And we recommend, if he has access to that book, I recognize more than 6 different categorization for goodwill. And I did some practical, illustration of how the mathematical aspect of it is handled. It is more of an accounting exercise because goodwill doesn't have the framework of and IP, so that you only talk of goodwill. I mean, it's something that is common when maybe for litigation purpose, like you are dislocating somebody from a place, maybe under compensation, and it's telling you, I'm losing the location of goodwill. That one is easy to determine. Personal goodwill, that one is not transferable. So it depends on type of goodwill that is to be valued. And like I said, there are so many methods of approach. But in a situation where we are now talking of IP, you need to really understand the scope of IP so that you'll be able to divulge it away from what you are calling goodwill. Because at the end of the day, you may end up doing double counting when some elements of IP are in what you have already treated as a goodwill. But looking at it holistically, if you are valuing a goodwill and you take it as an umbrella asset, incorporating all intangible assets, it's very easy to come up with. But if you want to treat goodwill as being separable from IP, it is better treated as a residue, as the last residue in the components of assets, so that after you have treated the tangible assets, we now go to intangible IP, then the residue will now be the goodwill. It's better we look at it from that perspective. Otherwise, if you are treating goodwill as net of tangible assets, then you are more or less talking of goodwill and IP combined.
Thank you so much. Yes, you are really passing some messages, and I'm happy with the responses I've been having here. Now, on the question and answer page, anonymous attendee said that when will the professional group be organizing training on the subject matter? I think the answer is direct from me, and that is kindly sustain yourself to be member of this platform. Intermittently, trainings will be coming up, and I can assure you that it will be within a short period of time henceforth. And the reason for this is, since we have jumpstarted this before every other set of things come to divert our attention, other sets of information that are required for us to be well tutored will be administered onto us right from this platform. So please kindly glue to this one. Second question was from Esfiola Jumokola Tunji. He said, thank you, my good lecturer, for this wonderful presentation. My question is, since IP evaluation is new to us, what's the effort of the faculty and the people like you to take this to the classroom for our young ones in the school? And maybe in line with this same question, the comment on the chat on our chat page shows that we have so many, about 4 or 5 of us are saying we need to go back and instill this IP evaluation as part of the curriculum. So without trying to waste much time on that, my chairman is here and the executive are here, and the message is that we should go back to the drawing board and chart a course to ensure that in all our higher institutions of learning, IP evaluation is taken back to be taught the way we were taught asset valuation, property valuation. Same thing, we should go back and start teaching IP evaluation, so that in the next 3-4 years, we'll have some set of graduates who will be good enough and who have a very good knowledge of this. Then my doctor, we have so many people who are having interest in the book, in your publication that contains how to do this valuation. So for the interest of all members here, we want to know, 1, what is the title of this book? 2, how much is it? And for being members of this platform who had patiently been waiting for 3 days consecutively now, what discount can we enjoy from the book? My doctor, sir.
Yes, sir. I will be sincere. The book was just prepared that time to fly the cat, and I was happy it achieved its purpose.
Okay.
I can make the books available through our chairman.
Okay.
And yesterday, somebody approached me wanting the book as donation. Somebody very close to me. I had to give her at cost. And so the market price is 1,500, but on the faculty, I'll be giving it out at 1,000 naira only.
So that's a very good one. Our members on the platform, please, our doctor has done all of us a very good, wonderful approach here. What we would like to do is that what we implore all of us, one, as a means of encouraging Dr. Tu for this effort he has done, I want some of us to come up and donate this book to this faculty. What do I mean by that is some of us that can buy 5, some can buy 10. Let's make it as an incentive, one, to our doctor who has done this effort in the past to ensure that he was able to institute and get registered the department, the IP evaluation as a course, and at the same time to encourage other younger ones that will be ready to write, that when they write these books, their effort will be appreciated. So sitting on my own position as a civil servant, though I know we are not like we are trying to be, but I will on my own here take 5 copies, and I think we are going to get the details as we go on. So, wow, from my ESP Raji Adewale, he has agreed to support this with another 10 copies. So we are having 15 copies right away. So as we are going on, yes, that's a very good gesture. So we need that. Then a question has come. Please, they said, how can we, he said the goodwill in partnership that need to be separated. How do we get that done, sir, as IP evaluation? My doctor? Hello, sir.
Yeah, take that question again, please, sir.
He said there are 2 companies that were going together in partnership,
Okay.
and they were about to be separated. In the course of their operation, they've been able to create some goodwill. Now they want to separate. How can they get that thing, get the goodwill valued so that by the time they are separating, each of them will know they've gone and they've said to each other without any reason, it's okay, you or he do something. Thank you, sir.
There's something we should even look at. Is it good way that they are value? Because we are talking of a divorce of partnership.
Yes,
and
sir.
They were formerly using a trade name. You see, by the time they separate,
Yes, sir.
by the time each of them will now be using separate names, not carrying over the old one. So you look at it from that perspective, they are destroying the goodwill.
Okay.
It's unlike somebody leaving the partnership while the other continues with the name. Then we now say that he's now assuming the portion.
Okay.
Or the person that is being divorced from the relationship. There's a case of 2 of my classmates in the university. They were in partnership for more than 20 years. Later, the partnership was dissolved. Now, none of them inherited the old name. I think you understand.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, in such a case, there can be no claim to goodwill being inherited by any of the parties. There is nothing to share in terms of goodwill there. It's only if there are recognizable IP assets that have to move from the partnership to one or either of the parties, then that can be valued.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Now, yes, Raji Adewale, the response from doctor says that if none of the partner will continue with the name, then the goodwill has gone down the drain. It means the goodwill has gone down the drain. But if one of the party will continue to be making use of the name, then the worth of that name will have to be looked into on a technical ground. Maybe that may not be easily explained here on a technical ground. And then whoever will continue with the name will pay that additional thing to the one that will be parting the company. I think I got you right, sir.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you very much, sir. So quickly, I think on the book, I've added some other people that are supporting. Now, our council member, ESC Bature, a former national secretary, are supported with 10 copies. Ogatunde are supported with under 10 copies. Olusheyi are supported with 12 copies. And even I had someone has said that, can these books be taken or brought to for that court next week, where we'll be having a valuers assembly, so that some of us that are making these promises today, we can easily hand over our response and get the books. Then Olatunji Olajimoke saying
hello, sir.
copies. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. For those who want it, if they want to donate it to the hello, sir.
I will say, sir.
Yeah, for those wanting to donate it to the faculty.
Yes, sir.
I think, sir, the best thing is to send the money to the faculty chairman.
Okay.
Who have access. I mean, he can easily get as many copies as are needed from me in Lagos, because except those who want to buy on their own, a few copies will be taken to Port Harcourt, but those few copies will not be for the purpose of donating to the faculty. Actually, when the book came out, I published it alongside a bigger one, property valuation textbook also. And it was just unfortunate that there was a movement restriction, there was fuel scarcity when it came out early 2016. But I made sure it was donated to many of the schools within reach, both universities and polytechnic, OAU, Yaba Tech, Laspo Tech, Mapoli, University of Ilorin, Kwara Poly. I mean, I think I was able to access about 21 higher institutions then that the book was freely donated to.
All right, sir. I think we'll sort this one out.
We try and make a few copies available, but you know, it's not easy to carry load. So, but that is for those who want to acquire personal copies. But if it is for the faculty, let them pay directly to the chairman so that the chairman can claim the number of copies paid for.
Before we before we go on the issue of the book,
Yes, sir.
our Mr. Tunji Aina has added some other clarification and is equally supporting the discussion on ground. He said the difference between goodwill and other intangible assets, customer loyalty, brand reputation, and other non-quantifiable assets count as goodwill. Intangible assets are those that are non-physical, such as companies' proprietary, copyrights, patents, licensing agreements, and website domain names. While goodwill and intangible assets are sometimes used interchangeably, there are significant differences between the two in the accounting world. So I want to say a very good thank you to Mr. Tunji Aina, as I said earlier. We are just starting and it's obvious. And the more we are interacting, so we will get to know more of all these subjects. The more we are interacting, so we will get to know more on this subject. The presentation of day before yesterday and that of today had really spurred some of us and has reawakened some of the areas where we have never thought of going to before. That shows that definitely we have a long way to go, but we are confident that the end product is good. So it's a worthwhile journey. We are confident that it's a worthwhile journey, and it's an endeavor that you can see from the outpour of our response. So definitely, Mr. Tunji Aina, I want to assure you that as we are going on in this journey and on this journey, we will go together so that we will bring all necessary ideas and everything from the accounting, from the legal perspective, from the valuer's perspective, and come up with a solid standard. There's nothing bad in having Nigerian standard of valuation of IP. There is nothing stopping us from having our own standard. Once we know that, yes, this is a standard, idea can come from anywhere. And with that one, we really appreciate. So my noble colleagues and my chairman, because we have spent so much time here, and I want to believe that we had a very good time being together. And from the outpour of response and everything, I want to thank all of us. For the sake of Mr. Olusheyi Olushola and all that are on platform seeking for the contact of the chairman, his telephone number, and it is an email. It is, the name of the chairman is ESP Lekon Akinwumi. For those of us that want to have his written, his telephone number is 080-359-74430. I repeat, 080-359-74430. And his email is akinwumiko@yahoo.com. akinwumiko@yahoo.com. We can keep the discussion on our platform. The issue of how to make the payment for the book, where the payment will go for the book, and all of those ones will come in accordingly. Every other questions that are coming up now, we will still collect them, and on our private, on our group chat, we will be attending to them as we move on in this endeavor of ours. So, my chairman, please, you are hereby invited to make one or two observations or comments before we forge ahead to call today's affairs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I really appreciate your work, and I also want to appreciate Mr. Tunji Aina. He has been a wonderful joint fellow on this journey. We really appreciate you, sir. And I also want to appreciate everyone that have donated books, support in one way or the other to this laudable journey. We started a crusade about 3 months ago that is going to schools, sensitizing the final year students of universities and polytechnics about IP evaluation. We are still on course. Just due to some issues, that's why we have not reached some other areas. But at least we have visited about 3 schools now, and we are still moving. We have already made it a plan so that our curriculum can be changed. You know, we have moved that one even in the board level that our curriculum has to change in line with all our area of specialties. So I am sure in a couple of months, you will begin to see changes by God's grace. I'm seeing somebody on this platform, John Bull Ofoyela. Is it the first vice? Hello? Hello?
Hello, my chairman, sir.
He is the first vice on this platform. I'm seeing John Bull Ofoyela. Okay, the person said no. Okay, because so that I will not breach protocol. So I really appreciate everybody. Thank you for your time. We're in together, and let me also say that we are going to have series of between now and January, by God's grace, we are going to have series of trainings that will enable us as a faculty to even have our own identity. So please, all interested parties or people, participants that want to join the faculty, we are available. Tomorrow we are going to have our general meeting by God's grace, and we are going to deal with a lot of issues in that meeting by God's grace and take some decisions as well. I appreciate our past president. He has been online even before some of us here, and also the wife, she has been online too. I appreciate 2 of you. Thank you very much. The council member, the Turaki one, Malam Bature, thank you. I appreciate my colleague from other faculties, Kevin. I've seen Chief Kevin. I'm seeing Raji Adewale and host of others. Even one of our elders in the faculty has always been with us also, Mr. Olani Patokun. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everyone. We are always available to render service, and we are there to ensure that this sector is well developed, and will really take position of things. You have seen what we have started on Tuesday. We are doing more by God's grace. More agencies, we are approaching them for collaborations and also to really render our service to our dear nation, Nigeria. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
All right, everybody, thank you, the chairman, for thanking us. We thank everybody for making it a very wonderful day. We appreciate our tenacity to ensure that from the beginning to the end, everyone stand and we maintain the relationship. By His grace, together, all of us get to the top, and it will be much better and much merrier for all of us at the end of the day. Looking forward to meet you all tomorrow. By God's grace, you're welcome. Thank you, and God bless. To the operators at the secretariat, our nice organ that make the facilitation easy for us to go on with this. We really appreciate you.
Yes.
God bless you all mightily. We appreciate you. Without you, we know, yes, there's little we can do. And with your continuous cooperation, together we are going to build this profession to an enviable level where all of us will be proud to say, I am an assessor and valuer. I am an IP valuation specialist. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye.